Akwaba, and welcome to Africa Ascending, where we tell Africa's stories, on our terms. Today, we're taking a closer look at Burkina Faso, a nation making bold moves in science, agriculture, and governance during the month of August in 2025. Following me is our correspondents Kwame and Kinsey. They will bring you detailed reports on the stories shaping the country. I'm Mercy, and this is Africa Ascending News. First up, let's hear from Kwame, who's covering Burkina Faso's groundbreaking scientific decisions. Kwame, this story about genetically modified mosquitoes has caught international attention. Take it away.
Thanks, Mercy, and thank you viewers for joining us. Mercy, as you mentioned, Burkina Faso is making bold moves. The way they're handling science really shows national agency. So let's talk about Burkina Faso, a nation in West Africa, a place with a name that means land of incorruptible people. And recently they lived up to that name in a big way. They looked at a multi-million-dollar, high-tech, international science project and said, hold on a minute, it was a project designed to release genetically modified mosquitoes to fight malaria. Malaria, a disease that has haunted the continent for generations. A relentless thief of lives and futures. The world expected gratitude. A red carpet rolled out for the scientific cavalry. Instead, Burkina Faso hit the pause button. A very big, very loud pause button. This wasn't just a simple no. This was a declaration. It was a nation drawing a line in the Sahelian sand. A line that separated foreign solutions from sovereign decisions. If you're new here, this is Africa Ascending, where we tell our own stories and not let them be told for us. Subscribe and join this journey of truth. So what is this super mosquito they were talking about? It sounds like something straight out of a Marvel movie. It's called a gene drive. Basically, scientists figured out how to hack mosquito DNA, then they rigged the system, so this trait is passed to nearly all offspring, spreading like a rumor until the entire species is changed. The promise is incredible, but this brings us to the real question, the one that makes people in power uncomfortable. Who gets to decide? Who holds the remote control for the planet? For centuries, major decisions about Africa were made in rooms in London, Paris, Brussels, men in suits looking at maps. So when a new technology developed in labs in Europe and America is proposed for release in an African village, you have to forgive the locals for feeling a little bit of déjà vu. They had the money, the patents, the PhDs. They came with data, charts, presentations, all showing how this was for Africa's own good. But the ethical dilemma is not whether the science is good or bad. The question is one of consent, real, informed consent. Who bears the risk? It's not the scientist in a lab coat a continent away. If something goes wrong, it is the Burkinabe farmer who will live with it. And here's the truth. It's a permanent decision. There is no undo button. That's the heart of the matter. Ultimately, this whole story is about one thing. Dignity. National dignity. Scientific independence. The right of a people to chart their own course. For too long, the narrative has been that Africa is a place of problems that need fixing by others. Burkina Faso's decision directly challenged that narrative. They asserted their right to be cautious, to be skeptical, and to prioritize their own perspective. It was an act of profound self-respect. It's about seeds. It's about minerals. It's about data. This isn't anti-science, it's pro-sovereignty, a demand for a new kind of partnership. Equal partners in the scientific process. They want to be in the room where the decisions are made, not just waiting outside for the results. They are challenging the very structure of global science and aid. If this resonates, family, give this video a like so more people hear Africa's side of the story. This is a story of agency, of leadership, of a continent defining its own modernity. A legacy is not a gift, it's in the soil, the upward drift, a voice that rises from the ground, a sacred, sovereign, certain sound. Burkina Faso's stand was a single moment, but it represents a much larger movement. So where do we go from here? The story of Burkina Faso and the gene drive mosquito is not an ending, it's a beginning. It's a powerful call to action for the rest of the continent. The lesson is not to reject all foreign technology, but to engage with it from a position of strength. The goal should not be to simply import solutions, but to build the capacity to create them. Imagine research consortiums headquartered in Accra or Nairobi, led by African scientists who grew up with the disease. Imagine clinical trials where the ethical review boards are composed of local community leaders who can provide true oversight. This is not a fantasy. It is an achievable goal. Investing in African universities, funding African-led research, creating platforms for African scientists to collaborate and lead on the global stage. Burkina Faso's decision was a spark. Now it's up to the rest of the continent and its global partners to fan it into a flame. It is time to move beyond the tired old scripts. The future of science in Africa should be about who solves the problems, not who owns the patents. The land of incorruptible people has shown the way.
That is all very remarkable. It really puts the focus on sovereignty and ethics.
Exactly, Mercy. And the promise is incredible, but the real question is who holds the remote control for the planet? This is Africa Ascending. This is a reminder to subscribe and join us as we bring more stories that honor legacy, sovereignty, and leadership. Now let's turn to Kinsey, who's on the ground with the story of the White Volta and the Begre Dam. Kinsey, it seems the water challenges are as complex as the science story we just covered. What's happening over there?
Thank you, Kwame. That's right. Both stories show how Burkina Faso is balancing progress with responsibility and the impact on local communities. In the heart of West Africa, a great river carves its path through the landscape. This is the White Volta, a lifeline for countless communities. It flows from its source to the nation of Burkina Faso, continuing its journey southward into Ghana along this ancient waterway, a modern marvel of human engineering, a structure of immense power and purpose. This is the Bagre Dam, located in Burkina Faso, built not as a barrier, but as a partner to the river. Its primary purpose is to harness the immense energy of the water, generating vital electricity. It also provides a vast reservoir for irrigating thousands of hectares of farmland, turning arid earth into fertile fields of rice and maize. The dam itself is a colossal structure of concrete and steel, holding back a body of water that transforms the surrounding environment. The term spillage may sound accidental, like a mistake or a failure, but in the context of the Bagre Dam, it is deliberate and necessary. It is a calculated release, a safety measure to protect the dam's integrity. Imagine the reservoir as a giant basin during the rainy season from June to October. Powerful storms pour huge amounts of water into the rivers feeding Lake Baga. The water level rises day by day, inch by inch. Operators monitor this rise with constant vigilance, watching the water creep toward maximum safe capacity. There comes a point when the basin is simply full. To let it overfill risks catastrophic failure. The immense pressure could breach the dam wall, causing an uncontrolled, devastating flood far worse than any planned release. To prevent this, operators opened the spillway gates. This is the spillage, a controlled deluge, a torrent released back into the White Volta River. The annual spillage of the Bagre Dam is not a new phenomenon. It has been a recurring event for years. But something is changing. The rhythm of the rains, once predictable, has become erratic and more extreme. This shift is widely attributed to the unseen hand of global climate change. Our planet is warming, and this additional heat in the atmosphere and oceans is supercharging the water cycle. It is altering weather patterns in ways that we are only just beginning to fully comprehend. In West Africa, this translates into rains that are often more intense and concentrated than they were in generations past. The sky seems to open up, releasing astonishing volumes of water in shorter periods. This intensification of rainfall has profound consequences for the Bagre Dam. The reservoir, designed based on historical rainfall data, now faces inflows that can exceed all previous records. The basin fills up faster than ever before. This forces the dam's operators to release water more frequently and sometimes in greater volumes to keep the structures safe. The delicate balance they try to maintain is being pushed to its limits. Climate change is shortening the window for decision making. When the waters from the Bagre Dam surged downstream, they crossed the border into Ghana and spread out across the low-lying plains of the Upper East and Northeast regions. Here, the river transforms from a lifeline into a threat. The onrushing tide inundates vast areas of land with terrifying speed. The first and most devastating impact is on agriculture, the backbone of the local economy. Entire farms, carefully planted with rice, maize, vegetables, disappear beneath the brown, churning water. The crops, a family's food security and income for the year, are completely destroyed. The investment of seeds, fertilizer, and months of hard labor is washed away in a matter of hours. The flood's reach extends far beyond the fields. It engulfs entire communities. Homes made of mud and thatch are particularly vulnerable. Water can weaken foundations and cause walls to collapse. Persistent dampness can render houses uninhabitable for weeks or months. Families flee with only the possessions they can carry. They seek refuge on higher ground, in schools, or with relatives in unaffected areas. Critical infrastructure is crippled. Floodwaters submerge roads and wash away bridges, isolating communities. Help struggles to arrive, and essential services become hard to reach. To truly understand the impact of the floods, we must listen to the voices of those who live through them. Consider the story of a farmer, let us call him Kofi, from a small village near the White Volta in Ghana's Upper East region. For generations, his family has farmed this land. The river has always been their partner. It waters their crops. It provides fish. Kofi knows its rhythms, or at least he thought he did. He remembers a time when the floods were gentler, when they would enrich the soil and then recede. But in recent years, the water comes with a new and terrifying violence, driven by the spillage from the dam far upstream. One year, the warnings came late. Kofi had heard on the radio that the dam would be opened. But the water arrived faster and higher than anyone expected. In the middle of the night, he was woken by shouts from his neighbors. He and his family scrambled to save what they could, grabbing a few goats, grabbing chickens, heading for the higher ground where the school was located. They watched from a distance as the water consumed their home and their 2-hectare maize farm, which was just weeks away from harvest. In the days that followed, Kofi lived with his family in a crowded classroom, relying on aid from emergency services. He faced the monumental task of rebuilding his home and his life with almost nothing. In the face of this recurring crisis, governments and communities are not standing idle. A complex system of preparation and response is in motion. Though it is constantly tested by the scale of the floods, the first line of defense is communication. Authorities in Burkina Faso at Sonabel, the state utility that manages the dam, now provide advance notice to their counterparts in Ghana. This information is then disseminated by Ghana's National Disaster Management Organization, or NADMO. NADMO uses radio broadcasts, community announcements, and local leaders to spread the word that the spillage is imminent, urging people in low-lying areas to evacuate to safer ground. They pack and move to higher ground. Once the flood hits, a massive emergency response operation swings into action. NADMO mobilizes military responders, police responders, and non-governmental organizations. They work together to rescue stranded individuals and provide immediate relief. Rescue boats and teams in action. They set up temporary shelters in schools and other public buildings, distributing essential items: food, water, blankets, mosquito nets. Mobile health teams are deployed to address immediate medical needs and prevent disease. This response is a lifeline, a testament to human solidarity in times of crisis. However, the focus is slowly shifting from simply responding to disasters to proactively building resilience. NADIMO and its partners conduct community drills and education campaigns, marking evacuation routes and building local capacity. Growing efforts construct elevated safe havens and reinforce community buildings. The story of the Bagre Dam and the White Volta River is ultimately a story of interdependence.
That's an
The
incredible
water that
illustration of
flows
shared
from
resources,
Burkina Faso
and the stakes
to
for
Ghana
communities
is a
downstream are
shared
extremely high.
resource, and the challenges it presents must be met with a shared sense of responsibility. The annual spillage is not a problem one nation can solve alone. It demands cooperation, communication, a unified vision for the future of the entire river basin. Strengthening the partnership between the two neighboring countries is the path forward. A crucial step is enhancing early warning systems. Move beyond simple notifications to a data-driven approach. Better weather forecasting, real-time river level monitoring, and advanced hydrological modeling shared rapidly and transparently. Give communities more lead time to protect properties, evacuate families, and secure livestock. Invest in green infrastructure, restoring wetlands and reforesting riverbanks, which act as natural buffers, absorbing water and slowing floods. Build a second dam downstream, like the proposed Kwalugu multipurpose dam, to capture Bagre spillage. Turn floodwaters into irrigation and power, mitigate damage, and create opportunities. In the end, a story of hope. Our capacity to learn, adapt, and work together faces a changing planet. Embrace collaboration, invest in science and sustainable engineering, listen to communities by the river. Burkina Faso and Ghana can forge a new relationship with the White Volta, manage its power together, share its benefits equitably, and build a safer, more prosperous future.
Thank you, Kinsey. That really shows how climate change is reshaping traditional systems and requiring new solutions. Kwame, let's move from water to food security. What's happening with wheat production?
Right, Mercy. Did you know? Burkina Faso wants to double its wheat harvest by 2026. That's not just a farming story, it's a blueprint for food independence. Burkina Faso, a landlocked country in West Africa, relies heavily on imported wheat for bread, a staple food. With global supply chains shaking, the government has a bold plan: double domestic wheat production by 2026. Why does this matter? Because wheat isn't just about food, it's about jobs, it's about stability, it's about national pride. Right now, Burkinabe farmers produce only a fraction of what the country needs. So, officials are rolling out training for farmers, distributing quality seeds, and investing in modern irrigation. The goal: go from 29,500 to 60,000 tons in 2 years. That's huge, especially for a country battling climate pressures and limited resources. But if they succeed, Burkina Faso could cut wheat imports, keep more money at home, and boost food security for millions.
That is an ambitious plan, and it's great to see it tied to national independence.
Absolutely, Mercy. It's about more than food. It's about stability and pride. It's a bold vision and a real test of resilience. Can Burkina Faso turn a wheat field into a symbol of sovereignty? The next harvest will tell.
Kinsey, shifting now to an international story with America roots. What's the latest?
Thanks, Mercy. In the quiet state of Ohio, an international story of political turmoil and justice reached its conclusion. A man named Kohn, a former soldier from the West African nation of Burkina Faso, was living in Cincinnati. However, His past was not ordinary. He was a convicted participant in a violent attempt to overthrow his country's government. United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement, known as ICE, discovered his presence. After a legal process, ICE agents arrested him and on August 24, 2025, removed him from the country. This action highlighted a complex intersection of United States immigration law and international human rights enforcement, bringing events from a distant land to the forefront in an American city. The news of Cohn's deportation from Cincinnati may have come as a surprise to many residents. It is not every day that a person involved in a foreign coup is found living in the American Midwest. Africa Ascending is committed to unpacking the global forces that shape local realities. If you're watching from anywhere in the diaspora, take a moment to reflect. What does justice look like across borders? Drop your thoughts in the comments or join our next live discussion on immigration, accountability, and sovereignty. His case was not a simple matter of overstaying a visa. Instead, it involved serious allegations and a conviction for crimes committed during a period of intense political instability in his homeland. The United States government, through its immigration courts and law enforcement agencies, determined that Cohn's history made him ineligible to remain in the United States. His removal was the final chapter of a long journey that began with a failed power grab thousands of miles away. To understand why Cohn was removed from the United States, we must look back to September 2015 in Burkina Faso. At that time, the country was being led by a transitional government. This government was put in place after a popular uprising in 2014 forced the longtime president Blaise Compaoré from power. Cohn was a member of an elite military unit called the Presidential Security Regiment, or RSP. On September 16, 2015, the RSP launched a coup d'etat, attempting to seize control of the country from the transitional leaders and stop the upcoming democratic elections. Cohn was not just a passive bystander during these chaotic events. As a member of the RSP, he actively participated in the coup attempt. The goal of the RSP was to install a new military junta led by General Gilbert Diendéré, a close ally of the former president. During the coup, the RSP took control of the capital city, Ouagadougou. They captured the interim president and prime minister, plunging the nation into a crisis. The actions of the RSP were violent and aimed at persecuting those who supported the new democratic transition. Cohn, by his association and actions, was directly involved in this effort to undermine the state. For these crimes, Cohn was sentenced by a Burkinabe court to serve 7 years in prison. However, 5 of those years were suspended after his conviction and serving part of his sentence in Burkina Faso. Cohn sought a new life far away from the political turmoil of his homeland. At some point, he managed to travel to the United States. People come to the United States for many reasons: seeking asylum, other forms of protection from persecution. He may have applied for an immigration benefit, hoping to stay permanently. He may have presented himself as someone fleeing danger. However, his personal history contained a significant barrier to any legal claim to stay. The U.S. immigration system provides refuge for the genuinely persecuted, but it excludes those who participated in persecution themselves. This is a key principle in U.S. and international law. When Cohn contacted immigration authorities, his background was scrutinized. His past as a member of the Presidential Security Regiment, and his role in the 2015 coup came to light during the investigation. The investigation was a collaborative effort. It was led by Homeland Security Investigations in New York. They were assisted by the Human Rights Violators and War Crimes Center. Their involvement signaled a deeper probe than a standard immigration case. Ultimately, Cohn's attempt to find safe haven failed because his actions disqualified him. He was not seen as a victim, but as a perpetrator. Once United States authorities identified Cohn and understood his background, he was placed into immigration proceedings. This is a formal legal process in an immigration court, part of the Department of Justice. An immigration judge hears the case and decides whether a non-citizen can remain in the country. The U.S. government, represented by ICE lawyers, presented evidence against Cohn. Evidence included his criminal conviction from Burkina Faso, details about his role in the 2015 coup attempt, and membership in the Presidential Security Regiment. The judge carefully examined the facts. The court found Cohn had participated and assisted in the persecution of others. That finding is critical under U.S. immigration law. The law bars those who engaged in persecution from receiving asylum or other forms of relief from deportation. The court concluded he was ineligible for immigration benefits and had no legal basis to remain. A final order of removal was issued. ICE enforcement and removal operations in Cincinnati took over, located Cohn, arrested him, and arranged his physical removal from U.S. soil. Cohn's story is not just about one man. It's a small piece of a much larger political drama in Burkina Faso. His loyalty was to President Blaise Compaoré, who ruled for 27 years. Compaoré seized power in a 1987 coup. Thomas Sankara was assassinated during that takeover. For decades, his rule relied on powerful security forces like the Presidential Security Regiment, the unit Cohn belonged to. The RSP acted as a private army for the president, enforcing his grip on power. In 2014, the political landscape shifted dramatically. Compaoré tried to change the constitution to run again. That sparked a massive popular uprising. Protesters filled the streets, demanding his resignation. The protest succeeded. Compaoré fled the country. The 2014 uprising ended an era. A transitional government followed, organizing democratic elections. The 2015 coup attempt, with Cohn involved, was a direct reaction to those changes. The coup ultimately failed due to widespread popular resistance and pressure from the regular army and the international community. After the transitional government was restored, those responsible for the violence and the illegal power grab were held accountable. Cohn's deportation back to Burkina Faso is highly significant. It shows international cooperation for justice. By removing him, the U.S. affirmed the Burkinabe legal process. It closes a chapter in a long, often violent struggle for power. Burkina Faso still faces challenges, but accountability is vital to a more stable future. Mercy, back to you for the final update on the UN expulsion and what it means for the country moving forward.
Thanks, Kinsey. And it's striking to see how interconnected these stories are, from science and agriculture to international legal matters. This just in. Breaking news from West Africa. Burkina Faso has just expelled a top United Nations official, Barbara Manzi, following a critical UN report on the country's security and human rights situation. Now let me break it down for you. Barbara Manzi is the UN resident coordinator in Burkina Faso. She leads humanitarian work. She also handles diplomacy there. The government says the UN report undermined morale of the Burkinabe people and of the defense forces as violence from armed groups rises. They accuse Manzi of painting too negative a picture and of failing to consult authorities before release. The United Nations isn't backing down. They call the expulsion unjustified and say it makes delivering aid harder for thousands of people in need. Burkina Faso has been grappling with a humanitarian crisis for years. Over 2 million people have fled their homes. Food insecurity is reaching record levels. The UN report highlighted these urgent issues. It called for stronger protection of civilians and for more international support. But with this expulsion, aid work could become even more difficult. It's the latest sign of tension between Burkina Faso's military rulers and the international community. The country is trying to balance security, sovereignty, and human rights. For everyday people, the stakes are high. Getting food, getting safety, and getting basic services just got even harder.
Tensions are clearly rising and the implications for aid are significant.
Exactly, Kwame. We'll continue monitoring this story closely as it unfolds, so stay tuned for updates on what happens next in Burkina Faso. And that wraps up our coverage for today. From high-tech science decisions to water management, food security, and international affairs, Burkina Faso is showing bold leadership across multiple fronts. Thank you, Kwame and Kinsey, for your excellent reports, and thank you to our viewers for staying with us. Wendy Zieyelo. Medawa app. Thank you for watching and being part of our journey. As we've seen today, Burkina Faso is making bold decisions in science, agriculture, and governance, asserting its sovereignty and shaping its own future. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and follow Africa Ascending for more stories that honor legacy, leadership, and Africa shaping its own future. Here, we tell our stories, and we don't let others tell them for us.